Hiya, this is a follow-up video to the one I posted the other day with me very overwhelmed and emotional. I'm not going to apologise for that because that's how I was feeling in the moment. You know, I think it's important we acknowledge how we're feeling sometimes without making excuses for it. I'm not going to say, oh well, you know, it might have been PMT or perimenopause, because actually I was incredibly overwhelmed with the idea of our friends coming to stay and how it would reflect on me with the house being a mess, me not being prepared, and also me just not having the energy to deal with it. Anyway, so after I left the video note, I went home and I had excruciating pain because anxiety makes my nerve pain worse, and I know because my brain just goes up and up and up and up and up and up and doesn't have any way of doesn't seem to have any way of regulating itself. It's just thoughts are rushing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, anxiety, and you know, it's just that fear of failure. So I got home and had a lot of pain, and I said to my partner, look, why don't you just go and get some takeaway pizzas or something? It all seemed like a good idea. Felt not really, but calm. I didn't manage to have a rest at all, which is really bad news for me at the moment. And our friends arrived and it was lovely to see them, and then I immediately calmed down. You know, gave them a cuppa, and Mike took them off to a pub and they sat in the beer garden, had a beer. But in the meantime, there's no way I had the energy to go out and buy stuff to make them dinner, which is what I would have really liked to do, but I just didn't. It wasn't an option at all. And actually it transpired when we mentioned takeaway pizzas, they really weren't that keen on that idea because they're super healthy. And I hadn't been able to go shopping. So instead, Mike went with one of them to the shop to buy some stuff, and actually they cooked for us a very simple meal. And it was a really good exercise for me to relinquish control of, you know, trying to be a host. The pressure I put on myself to be a host is ridiculous. And actually, when people who are actually good friends, they come to see you, and they had no problem with, you know, I helped out in the kitchen, but they basically cooked, and it was actually fine. So that was the worst case scenario of what could happen. But I think it also shows who real friends are, because they understood. They said, we don't want to put you out. What happened in the end was I said, well, you know, please, you must stay the night. And while they were at the pub, I was able to go and get the bedding. I didn't make the bed, I just left it fold up and put it on the bed, and again, that was fine. And I knew I had to, you know, I'd built this up so much, but I knew I had to find a way forward, because the thought of not ever being able to have people come and see us, it's just crazy. And I just can't believe how strong my reaction was, how overwhelmed I felt, and how I was terrified. I phoned my mum and dad, and I was wailing and crying and just saying, you know, I'm worthless, I'm a failure. I can't even do these simple things for my friends. You know, I want to make a gesture towards them because they always look after us when we come to see them, but I can't. I feel like my hands are tied, and you know, all this emotion poured out of me, and I think I almost needed to go through it to then understand that the worst case scenario was I couldn't really do much, and actually that was fine. And it was really nice, and I really felt on a high from it. I even, you know, managed to do my normal bedtime routine, because I think I was scared of losing that, because that's my tried and tested way to deal with the nerve pain that ramps up in the evening and through the night. Anyway, so I just wanted to provide an update on that. And so I'm glad it happened, although I wasn't on the day when it felt like it was, you know, a great big rock dropped on me from a height. Being forced into these situations, which pushes us well out of our comfort zone, sometimes can force the realisation that we can still do the things that we want when push comes to shove. Anyway, that's all I want to say today. It's getting hot. I'm not out as early as I'd like, but I had a rough night, so I slept until gone 9 o'clock, because that is golden time in my recovery, just being able to lie in. Now it's the holidays I can do that, although my partner was already working, but he happily lets me just sleep for as long as I need to recover from these disturbed nights. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the sunshine, catch some D's while staying safe. You can't overdose on vitamin D from sunshine, but you can get burnt. Obviously you can suffer skin damage, unlike vitamin D supplements where you can have too much, although I think it's rare. Of course, I think I possibly have a sensitivity when I was on 10,000 international units a day and I was out in the sun. I might have had a reaction to that, but I've got no evidence really that that's what it was. But you know, for people with MS, vitamin D is essential. Whether it's from the sun or supplements or a bit of both, absolutely essential. So the Overcoming MS program will give you more information on that, and most people are, if they're taking supplements, they come up very short of what we might actually need. But it's something that's worth consulting someone over. Everybody's experience is different. Anyway, enjoy the sunshine, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.